What's up, Psychonauts? Welcome back to the podcast today. I have Jen Silver Moonflower, whatever you would like to refer to her by. And today I am so honored to have this as the first interview for this podcast because Jen and I have been working together in ceremony for the past year and a half. And so much growth has happened, so much expansion between herself and I, and honored to sit in ceremony with her as well as learn from her with all of her knowledge. So welcome, Jen, to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on, Jess. It's such a pleasure to have the opportunity to sit here with you again and, just in this moment, reflecting back on the past couple of years and how much we have grown and expanded and really harnessed our voice. And yeah, it's been a really beautiful journey to watch and share and support each other. So very excited for this conversation today.
Yeah, and so much has changed, like even within the realm of like mushrooms and how many more people are getting into it and doing it and sitting in ceremony and all of the things. So first question I'm gonna ask, because to me you're like the mushroom queen. Just put on the crown in my realm anyway. And so what brought you to mushrooms? That's going to be my first question.
I'm so curious how many times you're going to try to stump me on this podcast. It'll be great. You're giving me the title. Now you got to challenge me with the questions. Try to live up to the standard. Yeah, thanks. So what brought me to mushrooms it's a good question. It's been a really interesting journey with many different access points and gateways. And I started sitting intentionally with psychedelics and plant medicine and mushroom medicine about 12 or 13 years ago when I took off on my ayahuasca journey. And of course, prior to that, I was dabbling semi-consciously in the realm of psychedelics, more in festival situations and more of recreational type of scenarios. Even though for me, they were never really recreational, no matter how hard I tried to hit it with that recreational intention, it was always a medicine for me. And it actually put me into some pretty stressful situations that ended up being really great lessons, of course, that were catalysts to my healing and my growth and the way that I communicate with mushrooms. But to get back to your question, it really started for me when I started walking down the path with ayahuasca. And that was my big teacher. That was my medicine. I really wanted to go further on the journey, sitting and holding space and teaching and serving ayahuasca. And I was getting there. I was supporting my medicine people by, doing what I do best, by holding space and helping them organize and finding space and, bringing together the blueprint of people in ceremony that would be really meshing well with identity witnessing. But the path kind of ended for me shortly thereafter. Well, I say shortly, it was like 6-year span.
So short.
Yeah, so shortly. But I got up to the point of, being invited into ceremony while the circle was open to sing and to kind of offer some of the song keeping duties in that space. And that was kind of where I wanted to start facilitating and where it kind of started for me. But my medicine people who I was working with stopped serving, and that kind of put a halt on that work for me. So not wanting to step backwards into losing my integration and my intention and this communication I had built with psychedelics and starting using them recreationally, I started to work more intentionally in my own work in my own way with mushrooms. And flash forward a few years and COVID kind of came along, and I was beginning to hold space for a few people during COVID, like family members and friends. And then I decided that I was just going to go for it and learn how to facilitate, learn how to hold space in the way that I had already been doing without the use of plant medicine allies. The past like 4 or 5 years has really been really divine alignment of, my business unfolding in the realm of mushrooms and stepping into leadership and and learning how to hold space. And now we're all the way at the point where we are now teaching and gathering community and students to learn how to do this work in the way that we communicate with mushrooms and psychedelics. So it's been quite the beautiful journey.
Yeah. There's a couple of things that you said there that I really liked with like recreational, like how you tried to use it recreational and it just wouldn't work. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, oh man, so many different reasons. I think one, because when I was trying to hit it from a recreational space, I'm a pretty empathic, I'm a pretty sensitive person. And even though I didn't know it at the time, how important setting and mindset and the environment and the people you were around were really can affect your experience. And for me, like those things were really key, even though I didn't know how to set them up. And then the people and the places I was choosing to try to have a recreational experience were not conducive to what I was trying to experience in that space, even though they were great people. We had fun times, but they were wanting to trip out and see kaleidoscopes and have giggles. And I was over there like downloading my Akashic records and having past life regressions and just having really sensitive, heart opening experiences. And I think for me in those moments and in those attempts at recreational use, it was really in the integration pieces and the time thereafter that I realized like, I need to find a different setting. I need to find a different way of using this. This isn't necessarily the way that I should be going about it. So there were definitely some quote unquote, air quote, bad trips in there for me that were really great teachers and have been, looking back, some pretty pivotal moments in my evolution of self that I'm grateful for. So yeah, cheers to the bad trips.
Cheers to the bad trips. For sure. So this is actually perfect a segue into set and setting, because I've like interviewed a few people to get the podcast going, right? And majority of them have talked about set and setting, but we've never actually explained to anybody what set and setting is. So as this is the first episode, I would love for you to expand on like the importance of it and what it is.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's so many different ways to like dive into this, but from the foundational element, set and setting are crucial to your experience that you're going to have working with any type of psychedelic, any type of mind altering substance. So when we refer to the set, this is actually your mental space. This is the way that you're showing up in your life. This is your mindset. This is a container of your intention. This is, the thoughts that you have brought into your day, into your week, into this chapter of your life. It goes so much more beyond just what your conscious thought is in the set. It really goes into like who you are as a person in all your lifetimes. It all comes into ceremony. You never know what's going to come up. You could go in with the intention in your set to be, I'm going to heal my broken heart, for example. And all of a sudden you've got like things coming up from childhood. You've got things coming up from ancestry, lineage. You've got past life stuff coming up. And these are all things that have created this moment in your set. So I think the easiest way to kind of describe what the set is like you're the actor, you're the character in your own life story, and the set is the stage. And that's what you're bringing into ceremony or into your psychedelic experience. And then the setting, I guess one more little touch point on that. So the set is really your internal environment. The setting is your external environment. So these are everything that is affecting you from your external stimulation, the people around you, the space you're in, anything that's affecting your senses is going to alter and impact your experience internally. So, and to speak on the environment and the setting, there is no right or wrong space to do this in. And as we're coming more into like the mainstream modernization of psychedelics, everyone's like, we joke in our industry about the fuzzy blanket theory, like the clinical settings where it's like a sterile room with a fuzzy blanket and a pair of headphones and like a face mask. Like that's the ideal setting. And that's not entirely true.
It depends on the person.
100%.
Sure.
For some people, that's the perfect and ideal setting.
Yeah.
For many people, that's way too clinical. And I think about this sometimes too, even reflecting on more of like the recreational times, like healing and expansive experience can come at a festival. It can come on the dance floor. It can come when you're journeying in the forest or the jungle with your friends. It can come when you're sitting on the couch with your brother, like having some laughs, staring at the wall and tripping out. Like those are not, it's not to discount that that's not a healing or conducive, positive environment for a setting. But yeah, there's many different factors that come in that you'd want to consider to how your set is going to affect your experience and the inner set, or sorry, how the setting is going to affect your inner experience and how it's going to affect the set within.
Yeah, and it's super important. And like every single person that's going into ceremony, making sure that it's safe.
Safety is key.
Yeah. So important, because that's like also the goal with the podcast, is to make sure that people are finding the safe spaces and the safe facilitators and like people who know what they're doing because they've done it and they've been there and they've had the shitty experiences of like, oops, shouldn't have done that with that person.
Yeah, you live, you learn.
All right. Yeah. So let's talk legalities, because this is also something that is huge. There is, as far as I know, something that's happening within Canada and the States, and there are places in the States that it has become legalized, yet it's still illegal. I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about the legalization of it, but still having like, I don't know all the legal terms. What's your view?
Restricted,
yeah, on all of that.
Oh, I have some pretty heated views on this, so I'm glad you brought it up. And I'm also like, oh boy, someone might call me out. You know, we all have varying opinions on this as it comes more into the mainstream with regulation. My first view is like, it shouldn't have been illegal in the first place. Mushrooms have been here before humans have been here.
Yeah.
Humans have been working with mushrooms since the early days of conscious expansion and evolution. Like, you know, this is a part of our ecology. It's a part of our right of, you know, human existence and living on this earth. And the fact that it, you know, it's only been illegal for a relatively short amount of time, 60 years or so. And the fact that it's classified as a, you know, it's classified as having no medicinal value is the way that mushrooms and psychedelics are classified. And, you know, we've got enough scientific research right now to say that that's actually complete BS. Like we know there's medicinal value in this, but there's mind-opening, you know, sovereignty, expansive evolution properties of working with psychedelics that is really hard to control for people. So that's another reason that it is possibly illegal. But as we're coming more and more into the mainstream, I just think it's really, really important that all voices and all types of advocates and activists and ceremonialists and space holders and all sorts of people who are intentionally working with this medicine in a good way are included in the conversation and are included in legalization. You know, especially the Indigenous voices, because so many of Indigenous medicines have been adulterated and capitalized and turned into a poison. I mean, if we look at tobacco, for example, which is something that's so beautiful to work with in ceremony, it has become, it's been abused and it's been turned into a toxin, and it's turned into its dark spirit, right? So the same thing kind of goes with mushrooms, that, you know, the powers that be that are really moving this towards legalization, if they're not doing it in a good way, in a sacred way, in an intentional way, they're recreating a pattern of destruction. And this may be something that happens to mushrooms where we're, you know, for example, if they're going to legalize only synthetic mushrooms, then perhaps we're bypassing the spirit of the medicine and people may be missing out on some really powerful healing. And that's not to shade the way that things are and the way that pharma works, because there is definitely a place for everybody, you know, and there's definitely purpose in that type of Western medical model. And it may serve some people, but it can't be the only way. It can't be like a monocropped and monetized singular way of working with mushrooms, because that's not how they are in nature. So I get asked this question a lot, like, you know, what are your thoughts on legalization? And, you know, I work closely with a microdosing company. And so we get asked a lot too, like, oh, like, how are you guys doing this legally? And what are your thoughts on legalization? And I'm like, I'm not really a big fan of the way things are going with legalization and regulation. yes, I'm a big fan of doing things safely and best practices and having clinical trials and evidence so that we can reduce the amount of harm. Um, but I just think that the way that it's coming about is just cyclical in the way that they are trying to legalize it. And I think that there's a lot of harm in that. So, and I guess just to add one more point on this, because I could definitely I could rant about this all day. But and I don't want to offend anybody because we all have different opinions. And like I said, this is a space for inclusivity and all voices are valid. But we can't just say only psychologists are allowed to work with mushrooms, because most psychologists are now coming into my course and saying, I want to work with mushrooms. I have no idea what the hell they are.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, it's great to have knowledge, but knowledge doesn't come into play when we're using it in a practical way or when we're trying to integrate and embody this work. And, a lot of people that hold the pillar of experience and wisdom haven't gone through the knowledge route. Like they hold, people have 20, 30 years of working with these medicines. You can't go to school for 4 years and learn that.
No.
So we need both. We need a bridge of people who are holding this in a sacred and experiential way, and we need the people who are coming from the knowledge and the science realm to be supporting humanity and our clients together. There needs to be a harmony and a synergy. So that's in a nutshell my view.
I love that. And I think it's important because I've been listening to like more and more podcasts about this lately too. And it's like the people, you need to do it in order to have the knowledge and the integration piece. Like every single ceremony is different. Every single experience is different. Every single dose is different. So, I studied it for 4 years. Cool. On a book level, or did you actually go in?
Did you go in? Did you go into that pathway and like find the treasure? Have you navigated that map?
Yeah.
Like, I think the way I would spin it for people to get that perspective is like, how would you feel if you went and sat into a therapist's office who has studied all about, a certain type of trauma, but has no experience and no relatable way to communicate that with you? So you go in there and you're like, oh my God, this is all coming up for me from my childhood. And they're like, how does that make you feel? Like, you're just like,
no disrespect.
You don't get me. Yeah, no disrespect. I'm just giving an example. But, if that person can't see you at that level, they can't feel you, they can't really truly support you. They can just give you the verbatim that they've been taught. And I think that goes the same, if not more importantly, when working with psychedelics. If someone is having an experience that they don't feel seen, or the person can't hold space and relate to them on, then they may actually re-traumatize in that moment too. So, and that's not to say that everyone who's done mushrooms has had the same experience that the next person has. We all have very wildly different experiences, but at least a sense to be able to relate to how that journey goes and what the integration looks like, and how to hold space for somebody in that way where you're like, yeah, man, I've been there, and this isn't about my story, but I see you in yours. And so
the example that's coming up for me for anybody who's like brand new to this stuff is like, take a carpenter and put him into school for 4 years, and then take another carpenter and put him like building houses for 4 years. Who are you going to want to build your house?
100%.
It's the same fucking thing. Like, yeah, for sure.
It's even like, with some people in business or some people in life experience, like they may not have the doctorate degree or the certificate of completion, but they've got, years of training and mentorship, and they do the job better. They get it better than the way that they've been taught in the cookie cutter way. So
yeah. Oh, good old cookie cutter.
Good old cookie cutters.
It's my favorite. Awesome. Okay, so let's talk about microdosing.
Sure.
I would love to dive into that with you. Again, I've dove into this stuff because I'm working with you, and it's so fascinating, and I'm so grateful that this is where my path has gone. So psilocybin and serotonin, let's talk about it, and then let's talk about microdosing.
Definitely. Yeah. So when we're talking about psilocybin and neurochemistry, the pathways and the neurons that they're working on is the serotonin receptor. And we have our 4 happiness chemicals. We've got dopamine, we've got serotonin, we've got oxytocin, and the other one, endorphins. Thank you to my brain there.
She hasn't had her coffee yet.
I have not had coffee. I'm on a cleanse. But when we're working with serotonin, that's like the happiness chemical, the happiness feeling. It's a lot different than dopamine. Dopamine's like the satisfaction. Oxytocin's like the love. Endorphins is like the feel good, woo, exercise. Like, so serotonin is definitely one that, we need happiness. We need to regulate that. And, fun fact, if you haven't already dove into, some of the natural wellness side of things, the majority, I think the studies have shown it's about 90 to 95% of your serotonin is generated in your guts and in your stomach and microbiome. So we could talk about that. I'll let you talk about that with someone else, but there's a direct reflection to the food that you're eating and how healthy your guts are to your happiness. So if you're feeling mega depressed, you've got a ton of brain fog, you can't focus, and you're living off of 1 coffee a day, a pack of cigarettes, and McDonald's, I mean, they're not saying, but there may be a correlation there. It's like, yeah, you can go and pop a bunch of antidepressants to fix your depression, but like, what are we doing about downstairs? I don't know. So, yeah. So that's definitely one area to look at too. But when we microdose, the chemical of the psilocybin is connecting to the serotonin to help, modulate and increase serotonin in the brain. And that's another reason why you kind of feel it in your stomach too, is because the serotonin's made in your stomach, kind of throws your stomach off. If you're really out of balance, you might feel a little nauseous and a little uneasy. But I'll let you bring on a dietitian or a naturopath or something and dive a little deeper into that.
Good idea.
Yeah. But I mean, we can talk about like SSRIs and antidepressants and serotonin, the way that all works too.
Yeah, and the importance of not mixing them.
Definitely.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And again, we're kind of in the wild, wild west in the early days of a lot of this research. So, there's a lot of people who have a lot of varying opinions on what is right, what is not right, what are the best practices, and what's safe for people. And, the biggest thing that I hear in microdosing with the coaching that I do is like, most people are wanting to try microdosing as an alternative to antidepressants. They're wanting to try microdosing to support their brain, their happiness level, their overall well-being, their mood, and to avoid states of depression. And anxiety is a big one too. So yeah, it can be very helpful for that. And one of the things that I would say most people don't know is that if you're on an antidepressant, if you take a microdose, you're not going to feel anything. You're not really going to receive the benefits of that microdose, because what's happening is the SSRI is already filling up all of those keys in the brain for the serotonin, and there's nothing left for it to withdraw from the bank. The bank is tapped. So, I mean, it depends who you talk to, and most people would say that taking mushrooms and SSRIs together on a larger dose is not a good idea, because we want to avoid getting serotonin syndrome, which is really, it's a dangerous game to play. However, it's pretty rare that someone would experience serotonin syndrome taking SSRIs and mushrooms together. Obviously, because I haven't dropped this already, I'm not a doctor. Disclaimer, anything that I'm talking about here is from my own personal experience. It's from my opinion, from my research. This is not in exchange for medical advice. So I'm just putting that out there. But from the citizen scientist studies that have been going on through like James Fadiman's work and Microdosing Institute, the clinical studies that they've been doing with citizen scientists, which means that it's people who are voluntarily participating in research studies and, not necessarily going through like a big long-term clinical double-blind trial. It's generally safer in those studies to take microdosing. I'll give you the situational example. If someone is trying to wean off of antidepressants or already on antidepressants, it's generally safer for them to take microdosing while they're on it before going cold turkey off of the antidepressants, and then beginning to wean off and then, sort of alternating between. But that's definitely something I would advise if anybody is wanting to do that, to work both in tandem with someone who's experienced in working with mushrooms and your doctor, of course, because everyone's brain chemistry is so different. Everyone's medication is very different. So that's something, it's possible to do, but you definitely don't want to do it on your own because you could do something harmful or put yourself into a not a great space with withdrawals and things like that. So yeah, I mean, I think that's all I'll probably say about the SSRIs and mushrooms. But I don't know if you have any more questions about that. We can chat about it.
I just think it's important. And again, finding the facilitators who know that versus like people who are like, yeah, like let's just hop into ceremony. Like, what questions? Pay attention to the questions that your facilitators are asking you. What red flags, green flags for people who are looking to go into ceremony?
Yeah, I'm gonna add something in there before we talk about that kind of merges into it. But I think it's really important for people to vet their facilitators and vet the people they're working with, because there's a lot of people doing this work, and some people may vibe with one and not the other. But it's really important for people to ask the questions and interview your facilitators and know who you're working with, because everyone has a different set of values, everyone has a different set of ethics. Everyone has a different way of practicing. Some people practice entirely in silence. Some people do a lot of talk therapy. It's and there's no wrong or right, but you need to really make sure you take that time to find out what feels good for you. And if you don't know something doesn't feel safe, ask the questions. Make sure you get the information and the informed consent as best you can before going into an experience like this. So yeah,
it's so important.
So red flags and green flags for ceremony.
Like what to look for in your facilitators, like what kind of questions could you ask, and
paying
attention to, what they're doing.
Definitely. I would say the biggest question that I would ask, and it depends on how direct you want to be with somebody, but, ask them how long they've been serving, how often they work with mushrooms themselves, how big of a dose they plan to offer, and how big of a dose they've taken themselves. And I think it's really important. It's super important to know the difference between someone who I'm sorry, I'm trying not to shade anybody here, but it's really important.
No names.
Yeah. Not like I know anybody like this or anything, but it's really important to
going on YouTube.
Right? Howdy, meowdy. It's really important not to just work with people who are like, I drank ayahuasca once. I drank mushrooms once, and the mushrooms told me I'm a shaman. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm just going to say it like that.
I've heard other people say it on podcasts too.
Yeah.
It is so true.
You'll know who they are. They're the people that are like, I've been on my healing journey for a year and I'm enlightened and I've got the guru complex and I can heal you. That's a load of bullshit.
Ooh, I can heal you.
Yes.
That is a big one.
Yes, that's a definite red flag. Anyone who's offering to heal you, and this is not to discount people who consider themselves healers, because we are all certainly healers in many different ways of the way that we can inspire people on their healing journey. But anybody who offers to do the work for you is a no-no. And especially working with plant medicine, you are in there alone, my friend. You are on that journey on your own. Your facilitators are there to keep you safe. They are there to know what to look for. They are there to make sure that you are taken care of and dosed properly and being guided in your setting. But you are the only character on your set. And that journey and that conversation between you and the mushrooms or whatever psychedelic you're working with, is one that you need to take bravely on your own. It's the facilitator's job to do everything in the background for preparation and best practices and guidelines to really curate and cultivate a safe environment for you to get the most out of that experience. I have worked with shitty shamans. I've worked with shamans who have, and actual shamans, who have been doing this type of work from sacred lineages for 30 years and were shitty space holders. So I have that experience, and sometimes you don't really know what to look for, but definitely asking the questions and making sure you trust these people is important.
Was it you who told me that you were into space and the guy went upstairs and played video games?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, you're on your own. See you later.
I don't know if certain people I was sitting with in that ceremony will be here, but that ceremony was very much just me and ayahuasca in that moment. Okay, you got me, I got you, we're doing this. Okay, he's gone. So
you're on your own.
Yeah, I've never seen a shaman purged so much in my life, and he was going through his own work, and then he just like left us there. And if anyone's familiar with working with ayahuasca, it's not the same as just taking mushrooms and going on a journey. Like, you need a very experienced, wizard of the dark and light arts in that space. It's a pretty expansive and interesting space to navigate on your own. So yeah, there are definitely people out there that are, just coining the name, getting a stake in the game, and don't really know what they're doing. So beware.
Beware. Use your facilitators wisely. Make sure they have experience under their belt. Oh my goodness, there's so many other things. So let's talk about the program that you have created and that you are running, EntheoSphere.
Yes, I'm so excited. I'm very excited. We've got a couple weeks left until we launch. And yeah, so the program is called EntheoSphere. It's a 13-week mentorship in the ceremonial arts with myself and 6 other amazing educators, yourself included. And yeah, the program is really unique. It's, I've gone through a few of my own mentorships and trainings as well, and I've gone through a little bit more of like the medical model type of trainings, and what I wanted to create is something that isn't quite out there, because I found that through the work that people are doing, through what is being offered, they're very specific and beautiful, but they're not really holistic in the way that they're offering as many different angles into considerations for ceremony. So we're going to be we're kicking off with Michelle, who, she's an Indigenous matriarch from the Nahinwa. Sorry if I said that wrong. From the Nahinwa tribe in Northern Alberta. And she's going to be really initiating our ceremony container by doing a sacred initiation into ceremony and talking about, how to work with medicine in a right way, and how to, tap into spirit and ancestor and honor the land. And, that's something that I have been taught how to do, but nothing that I've ever really been given permission to teach on my own. So when I put this program together, I didn't think it was right for myself as a, white female who has had lots of privilege in my life to just be like, yeah, I'm going to teach that because I know all about plant medicine and I know all about sage. And I'm like, nope, I would definitely be getting a ass whooping in my ancestral meetings with my guides. So that didn't feel right for me to be holding that pillar. So I invited in Michelle to teach and educate and inform. And that feels really beautiful. I'm very grateful that she's coming into the container to share her wisdom and experience in a right and beautiful way. And then we've got James Jesso, who's a multiple published author, coming in. He's been in this scene since it was a deep, dark seed in the underground. So he's like really tapped in. He's very philosophical. He's got an amazing podcast as well. Hopefully you get a chance to interview him too. I think you guys would have a really engaging conversation. So he'll be teaching the foundations and fundamentals of facilitation and really diving into like relationships. So relationship with the mushroom, relationship with your facilitators, relationship to ceremony, relationship with your clients, in all the different multidimensional ways that you can communicate and have a relationship. Then we've got, who's coming in after that? We've got Ocean coming in, who's another co-facilitator. And she's been doing this work for about 8 years. She's trained in the Shipibo lineage, but she also works primarily with psilocybin. And she's got a really beautiful gift for facilitating and curating ceremony. Like she is beautiful in her work. So I'm very excited to see her, share her medicine and her gifts. And then who's after that? Oh, I'm after that. I'll be teaching on ethics and harm reduction. I found that in this work, and I think this is another story, but I think it's because I've been called out by people who didn't agree with the way I was doing things. And of course I've learned in many different ways, but I've become really, really passionate about educating on ethics and your fears and motivations about being a teacher. And like, are you doing this for money? Are you doing this to be seen as like a goddess healer, starseed queen? I just really want to get clear with people on what their ethics are, and offering space out of good ethical practice and respect for the people around you, and harm reduction and preparation, because that's super key in safety. And then we've got Chloe, who's a biochemical engineer coming in. She's amazing. She's going to be talking about, neurochemistry, neuroplasticity, stacking different vitamins and ingredients and herbs and supplements and supporting your integration and just everything about how the brain works. I've got a an elementary understanding of that, but she's coming in to really dive deep, connect us in that realm. And then we've got Diana, who was actually one of my mentors. I was assisting her in her mentorship training. She's coming in to talk about regulating the nervous system, the vagus nerve, upregulation, downregulation, what to do when shit hits the fan. She's a no sugarcoating kind of girl, so I love it. She's our people. And after that, is it just you after that? Who am I missing? Oh my goodness.
I'm like, you had a picture on your fridge, it's not there anymore.
I did have a picture on your fridge. Okay, sorry. Give me 1 second to calibrate here. We've got James, Ocean, Michelle, myself, Chloe, Diana, and then we have you closing it out. And if you want to share a little bit about what you're doing in your module, this is definitely a good time for that.
Yeah, I'm going to be sharing on the imposter syndrome and actually authentically stepping into this role, because it is a big deal. And the more I step into it, the more I realize that when you're living in imposter syndrome, it's actually a good thing, because you're getting out of your comfort zone and you are truly stepping into like the things that you came here to be and to show and to fully embody like who you came here to be and what you came here to do. And it's so beautiful to be able to share this with others, as like I've told you many, many times of like, I feel like I'm not supposed to be doing this. And it's like, yeah, that's a good thing, because that means that you're no longer comfortable. And it's so important to no longer be comfortable. So embodying the facilitator role, but also being humble and not letting your ego take over within that role.
Heck yes. I'm really excited for your module. And I think it's a really crucial and imperative piece that people need when they're stepping into such a shift and stepping into leadership. And I think it's a piece too that's been left out in a lot of other trainings, because they just focus on like, how do mushrooms work and how do we take them? And it's like, okay, well, what are your stories? What are your traumas? What are your timelines? What are you bringing into the space as a facilitator? Like, are you going to take that time to do your own work and check yourself before you just claim this this badge of who you are and what you want to offer? So I'm really grateful that you came in. You were definitely like the missing link in the puzzle when we were putting this all together.
Grateful to be a part of it.
Yeah. And like, I want to celebrate you here on your own little podcast, on your own big podcast, but just like how much potential I've seen in the work that you're doing. And, the times that I've even seen you like get stuck, and I'm just like, oh man, she's on the bridge of it and the precipice, and like all these breakthroughs you've been having. And you have so much potential with this work. And I really see like the medicine that you offer, and you're such a hustler, and you're so like in alignment with your integrity and your morals and your values. And like, I really see the medicine that you bring to the world is really special and unique. So very grateful to have you in this training.
Yeah. Happy to be a part of it for sure.
Yeah.
It's going to be really, really good.
So good.
And it starts on September
24th.
And then you will be offering it again though, right?
Yeah, I think we're going to do fall and spring containers. So it's like it's a 3-month container. Is it a month? Yeah, it's a 3-month container. So we'll be doing September 24th of 2023 to December 17th. And then we'll be doing an immersion retreat to be announced soon in between, for people to come and have that opportunity to practice their skills and to be in the realm of ceremony before they get set out into the world to potentially, share what it is they want to do in this space. And then we'll be offering it again in March to June. And I think I just want to add into that this training, there are other modules that I'm teaching in the training that I didn't speak on as well. So you can go to the website and check it out. Jess will link it below. But in this training, it's not just to teach everybody how to be a ceremony facilitator. I was kind of explaining to someone who there's a girl that's taking the training who just really wants to learn the ins and outs of ceremony and more about mushrooms. And, she has the capacity to be present in the training. This is kind of like a yoga immersion, like a 200-hour yoga immersion, in the way that some people go in to be, some people go into a teacher training without the intention of becoming a teacher. They just want to immerse themselves in that world, right? And so I've kind of built it out to be like that. It's like a buffet of information, knowledge, and insight and guidance with the mentors that we have available. And some people may go in with the intention to become a facilitator and discover, you know what, I'm really passionate about integration, or I'm really passionate about microdosing, or I'm really passionate about harm reduction and want to support at festivals and psych crisis. Like there are many different niches and branches on this mycelium network that we can come out of this training with. And we're not going in there to just give people the download on how to be necessarily a ceremony facilitator. It's not everyone is going to be a ceremony facilitator. It's a tough job.
It is.
We don't do it for fun.
No, it's a lot of energy.
It is a lot of energy, and it's it's challenging for sure. But this may be something that helps you on your pathway to becoming a facilitator too. So, yeah. I forgot to mention the other modules that I'm educating on are microdosing, integration, and scaling your business in an ethical way. So there are some other modules in there.
Yeah. You're gonna have to come into the container if you want to know.
We've got space for a couple of more.
Yeah, exactly. Let's touch on integration a bit, because like this to me, it's becoming more and more important, especially with the fact that I've done ceremonies and then you go in and afterwards it's like, okay, I just experienced all of these things and went through this huge transformational journey. Now what? You want me to go back to work tomorrow? Like, you want me to just like go and talk to my family and like, let's talk integration, because it's so important and I feel like it's missing for sure.
Yeah, heck yeah, Jess. Integration is integral. Integration is not optional, as one of my mentors would say. And, it's really interesting in our day and age with the community and the world and the society that we live in to have to practice integration, because in a lot of cultures, integration is their entire life, right? Like with ayahuasca culture, peyote, or some of these, other ancestral medicines, their community is integration. The life they live is holistic and in integration. And here it's like you got to carve out time to get away from the kids, get away from work, to go and do your medicine, have an absolutely life-altering, expansive experience, and then go back to the way everything was. And it's super important. And I usually describe integration to people because people are like, okay, I've heard of integration. Like, what does that actually mean? Like, I understand its definition, but like, how does that practically apply to me? Like, what does that mean in an embodied way? And, relating to integration, I think I give the example of like someone who is trying to quit smoking. So if you're going into a ceremony with the intention of like, I want to quit smoking, I'm ready to quit smoking, like, show me what I need to see, let's heal this, let's get the job done. So you go into your ceremony, that's your intention, and say it's a successful ceremony experience. You have this, very heart-opening experience and realization, and the plant medicine helps you attune to this frequency of like, wow, I don't need smoking anymore. I'm ready to quit. I'm done. This is the point where I'm done cold turkey. And now you're on this frequency that you weren't before when you were smoking. So you come at a ceremony and you're like, I'm good. Let's go. Like, I'm on a new vibration. I'm on a new path. My life looks different. And if you go back into your same environments that weren't supportive of that, or, perhaps you've got someone in your life who triggers you to need to smoke or whatever you need in that space, like, no judgment, that it happens. That's what our lives look like. If you get into that space, you're like, I'll just have one cigarette. I'm good. I'll integrate and I'll quit smoking in a month, kind of thing. I'll just have one. Now you've instantly changed your vibration. You've instantly taken yourself back to square one. And you're like, okay, I remember what that ceremony was like. I remember how powerful it was. I remember that vibration I was in, but you're no longer in that vibration.
Yeah.
You now have to start over. And, I'm being a little bit extreme in my example because it's not exactly like this
But
for
why
everybody.
not?
So yes, just to make it relatable, right? Like, you now have to start over and, not necessarily have to go through a ceremony again, but the ceremony gave you what you needed and you came out of it and you were like, I'm ready. You have to take that experience and apply it to your life. The integration is the application of the experience. And if you don't apply that, it just becomes a cool memory. It just becomes a cool story that you can tell that you are no longer carrying.
Mm-hmm.
So you go into ceremony and you carve out these jewels, you mine out these gems, you bring them out, and you need to keep them polished and shiny. You don't just
Mm-hmm.
put them on your shelf and let them get dusty and forget about them. And you're like, that's a cool thing to look at.
Mm-hmm.
No, you have to go out and actually apply that. So, you know, maybe the plant medicine gave you the heart healing that you needed, and you saw something, you know, about yourself that was triggering you, that was subconsciously making you smoke, right? So now you're like, okay, come out of that ceremony, you can stop doing those things and continue to choose to integrate and incorporate the things that are making you feel good, that are allowing you to stay in this alignment.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to make it even more powerful and tactful, like within the right after ceremony with mushrooms, we have a window of neuroplasticity, and it's very strong in the beginning, and then it kind of starts to fade. And so you really want to utilize this window, like a week to 10 days, where your brain is very, you know, it's easier to mold. It's easier to change your beliefs. It's easier to stick to a new practice. It's easier to commit to your integration, because you've just turned off the default mode network, and now you're allowing yourself to make new pathways in your brain. I like to use analogies sometimes, because people are like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
I heard this analogy on Live Free Laura D's podcast. She was talking about how when we're in the neuroplastic window, it's like having a fresh dump of snow on a mountain that's been skied on really hard. So you've got all these like really entrenched in pathways that no matter how you try to go down the mountain, you're going down this pathway that's really carved into the ice. And, you know, if you had a huge dump of fresh pow on the mountain, you know, we live in Alberta, so of course I'm using a skiing analogy.
Yeah. Perfect.
Then you're the first person off the chairlift. You can choose where that path goes. And then as you continue to go down and down and down, now you're making an entirely new path that looked different from the one before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same thing with integration when we're thinking about our behaviors, our choices, you know, our habits, our addictions, our patterns, whatever it is. When we're using a high dose of psychedelics, it kicks that default mode network offline. We get a fresh coat of snow on the brain. And now you're coming into a new window where you can choose to make better decisions, better choices that really support you. But in integration, it's challenging in our society, especially if you know, there's things to consider, like, you know, does this person have a safe place to go afterwards?
Yeah.
Are they in a high stress job? Do they have a partner who is holding space for them? Does their family understand?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because those things are all going to easily shift someone's integration and impress upon them. And, you know, the ceremony is powerful. The integration is just as powerful and is just as important. The ceremony holds no meaning, no true meaning, unless you integrate it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's a cool story, which
Right.
is why we tend to see people going to ayahuasca ceremonies 300 times over, and they're still searching for something. I'm like, how can you still be searching? Just take the gems, integrate them.
Yeah.
I'm just coming to an end of a 7-year ayahuasca integration. You know, it's like I didn't need to keep going over and over and over again to be with the medicine. I got what I needed up to a point where it was very clear that I had to go take some time. And like I took a solid 6 years. I can't remember if it's 6 or 7, but it took a solid chunk of time off of ayahuasca to integrate and to be in this realm.
Yeah.
You know, we don't always have to be doing the medicine, because then you're just getting yourself tripped up. It's a trap too.
Yeah. 100%. Don't get caught in the cycle. It's so important, because then it, like exactly what you just said, living in this moment instead of searching for something outside of you, or thinking that you have to ingest something to find what you're looking for, when truly, like, you did the work. Now do the work.
Exactly. Yeah.
Live it.
Stop talking the talk, do the walk. We don't always have to be in a healing journey. That's something that like bothers me a little bit about like I'm sorry, I'm just going to be blunt in this podcast.
Let's go.
It's something that bothers me about like the love and light, like spiritual new age kind of community. And I don't like getting called like woke or tapped into that, because I really don't consider myself a big part of that. And for sure in my earlier days, like, you know, things were shiny and I was, you know, in that a little bit, but I forgot what I was gonna say. I think, what was I talking about before?
Not living in
Oh yeah,
healing.
the healing journey. Like, yeah, we all have our healing journey, and damn right, everyone's got a healing journey when they're on this earth. But oh my God, do we not need to get stuck in this story, in this narrative of we're constantly need to be healing? That's a big trap on its own. That's an industry trap. That is like that is something that someone has created to make you feel broken, and that you need to keep buying things, and you need to keep, getting stuck in a system that we're trying to evolve out of. It's really, we're not constantly healing. And yeah, healing is nonlinear for sure. You may have a big chapter of your life where things are gravy and you're integrating, and then something else may come up and you may need to focus on that. And there's always maintenance, and there's integration, and there's fine tuning. Like a car, right? You got to do your oil changes, but you don't always need to like gut it out and get a new engine all the time. It's not constantly on the healing journey. So yeah, love and light, bruh.
Oh my God. Love and light, bro. Awesome. Okay, so let's wrap up with how do people find you, and like if they want to get information on Zoom Garden, on your course, on microdosing. You have so many talents, ceremonies.
I'm sorry. I don't know what kind of mood you've got me in right now, but I'm just like, how do people find you? And I'm like, take a walk. Take a walk outside on the third moon crescent of the night and look to the North Star. I'm just kidding.
There should be a night sky.
Twinkle twice. I'm full of shit. No. Yeah, to find me in the metaverse, in the universe, you can follow along on my personal page. I post lots of stuff about integration, dosing, best practices, mushrooms, and a little bit of my wildlife there. So Jess will post the links down below. EntheoJenn with an _ on Instagram. If you want to check out the course and more information on that and see what we're teaching and we're offering, you can follow along on Instagram for EntheoSphere, or you can go to entheosphere.teachable.com. And then if you want some amazing microdoses that I may be somewhat biased to, but I promise you they're great. We ship Canada wide. You can check out zoomgarden.ca. That's ZUM. It's not Zumgarden, but you can call it whatever you want. ZUMGARDEN.ca. And you can use your code. What's your code, Jess?
My code is ZummyJess.
She got it. ZUMYJESS. I love it.
Yeah.
And yeah, other than that, try going out on a blue moon and knocking 3 times on an oak tree. Or you can come join Jess and I in a ceremony. I'm sure, if you're not going to join us in the EntheoSphere container, we're going to have some ceremonies coming up again soon. Some really powerful, really intentionally curated ceremonies. So stay tuned for all of that.
Stay tuned. Last question before I let you go. If you could give your very first ceremony one word, what would it be? The one that you were in.
Oh God, the one I was in.
Yeah.
Can it be like a hyphenated word?
Sure.
Cosmic giggles.
That's perfect.
Cosmic giggles, man.
I love it. That's great. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jen, for your time, your energy, and joining me on the newest edition. And like, honestly, this podcast has flourished because of our relationship.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited to share psychonauts and just magic. And, it doesn't have to be a journey that's with psychedelics. It can just be life. So
yes,
thank you.
Thank you, Jess. Celebrating your evolution, celebrating your bravery and your courage, stepping into your power. And I always enjoy our conversations. So
always.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Awesome.
Here's the behind the scenes.